This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. This week, President Trump and his team will make their case for another 4 years. Today, Republicans formally nominate the president for re-election. Unlike the Democratic convention last week, the Republican convention kicked off earlier today with an in-person meeting and roll call vote in Charlotte, North Carolina. This afternoon, the president made a surprise visit to the roll call vote. He promised not to take God out of the Pledge of Allegiance this week, in contrast to what the Democrats did in some of their caucus meetings last week. Vice President Pence also spoke in Charlotte today, making clear what the GOP will prioritize this year.
The economy is on the ballot. Law and order is on the ballot. Our most cherished ideals of freedom and free markets are on the ballot. That's why we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House.
After the Charlotte kickoff, most of the convention will take place in Washington, D.C. and by video from around the country this week. President Trump is expected to speak tonight and every night. And CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody, is here now with a look at what is ahead. And David, no shortage of things to talk about with the convention this week. But I want to ask you first, the president did this impromptu drop-in this afternoon, and he's decided to speak every night at the convention. What can we expect from him this week?
Well, a whole bit of everything, Heather, and it will not be anything like the Democratic National Convention that we saw last week. That was very planned, and we kind of knew exactly what was going to happen. But more than that, it was virtual, and Donald Trump does not want virtual this week. He wants live. He wants the free-flowing energy of whatever crowd will end up assembling in different places. We saw some of that in Charlotte already today. And so that's what we're going to see from this president. There are a lot of surprises. There are going to be a lot of surprises this week. White House tight-lipped right now, but you can be sure Donald Trump is going to make news like he always does.
Oh, wow. Well, the Trump-Pence campaign has unveiled a list of core priorities for the second term, and they are talking about everything from jobs to school choice to space. I'm wondering what issues you think we'll be hearing about the most from them.
Well, this week we're going to hear about 2 specifically. I mean, we're going to hear about all of that they mentioned, obviously, but the 2 themes are going to be law and order and cancel culture. We're going to hear a lot about both of those that, of course, have been in the news quite a bit. Everything with the riots and throwing Columbus and our federal statue history, if you will, into the river. And then, of course, you've got as well, you've got the cancel culture, and you've got many other things as well. So, yeah, I think that's where you're going to see the president actually focus his concentration. But look, you got to understand, this is a very different type of president, and they want to make sure that you're going to see a lot of American flags, and you're going to see a lot of patriotism, law enforcement, military, the whole kit and caboodle.
Very interesting marketing there, if you will. Also, I think something that's going to catch a lot of attention from evangelicals this week is Reverend Franklin Graham, who will be speaking at the convention. He certainly defended the president over the last 4 years, but this seems like a big step to endorse him on the convention stage, so to speak. What is your take?
Well, I think if I can channel Franklin Graham for a quick moment, I think what you would probably hear him say, and we hope to hear from him later this week on CBN News, is that, look, whether or not Trump is a Republican or a Democrat, he'd speak at any convention that represents what he believes are traditional biblical values as the way they are laid out in the Bible. And I think that is why he's going to go ahead and speak, because, look, the truth of the matter, Heather, is this. It's time to choose sides. I mean, that's where a lot of Americans are right now. You know, this whole idea of bipartisanship and kumbaya, yeah, great. But the problem is that you've got both sides thinking the direction in this country is going to go haywire, either positive or negative. And so you see a lot of people choosing sides. And I think Franklin Graham is saying, look, I can't hide the fact that I'm a supporter of this president. So why in the world would I not go ahead and do it on the biggest stage there is?
All right. Well, I know a lot of people are going to be watching that speech and everything else that's coming down this week, surprises and the planned events as well. David Brody, thanks so much for your insights.
Thanks, Heather.
Also, be sure to tune into Faith Nation this evening for more on the convention and the latest from our nation's capital. Well, as the president makes his pitch for 4 more years, he is also making a push for a potential coronavirus treatment. Trump announced last night that the FDA is giving emergency use authorization to use convalescent plasma.
This is a powerful therapy that transfuses very, very strong antibodies from the blood of recovered patients to help treat patients battling a current infection.
Convalescent plasma is blood from people who have survived the virus, which is then transfused into people currently fighting it. It has been used on 70,000 people since the pandemic began. Many COVID patients credit convalescent plasma with their recoveries, but several experts also warn that definitive randomized continually rolled studies on the safety and effectiveness of blood plasma have not yet been completed. The FDA says the benefits outweigh the risks, this as the number of new infections has dropped to the lowest level in 2 months. Well, in addition to Charlotte, many eyes are on the Gulf Coast this week as 2 major storm systems are set to hit the region back to back. Watches and warnings have been issued for multiple states. And meanwhile, residents in Northern California are bracing for more potentially catastrophic weather as wildfires continue to ravage the landscape there. George Thomas has the latest.
I was told to get some stuff, and that's what we're doing.
Residents and visitors in New Orleans and several other parishes are either leaving town or hunkering down.
We don't know what to expect, I mean, is it going to be a catastrophe or is it going to be just a lot of rain?
Louisiana's governor warning residents to prepare for a 1-2 punch as the 2 storm systems are set to make rare back-to-back landfalls on the Gulf Coast within 48 hours of one another.
We're going to get basically a right hook from Marco and then a left hook from Laura.
Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Puerto Rico already feeling the effects from the weather systems. And while folks along the Louisiana Gulf Coast prepare, residents in Northern California are bracing for more fire outbreaks. The National Weather Service warning of dangerous lightning and thunderstorms expected to hit this week.
Each and every county is now on high alert due to the storm that's coming in.
Dramatic satellite imagery from a few evenings ago shows the scope of the fires sweeping the northern part of the state. With hundreds of wildfires raging and more than 1 million acres already on fire, the California National Guard and U.S. military deploying personnel to help exhausted firefighters contain the blazes. More than 14,000 firefighters are right now on the fire lines.
A lot of adrenaline and a lot of passion, a lot of love for the job, knowing that if you sit down and you rest, someone might not have a house.
President Trump has declared the wildfires in California a major disaster. He's also issued emergency declarations in Louisiana ahead of Tropical Storm Marco, set to hit this afternoon, and Laura, which is expected to be a hurricane when it strikes overnight early Thursday morning. George Thomas, CBN News.
Weather Bell Analytics chief forecaster Joe Bastardi said in an interview on the 700 Club this morning that the tropical storm Marco is weakening, but that Laura is becoming more concerning.
I'm very confident of the intensity of Laura, that Laura is going to be very close to a major hurricane, if not a major hurricane, when it hits. We saw Hannah trying to ramp up as it came for South Padre Island earlier in the season. The track spread, though, until this gets away from Cuba, because you see, Cuba influences what the storm's going to do, okay? So when it gets away from Cuba, then we will hone in on it. Right now, it looks like between Corpus and Lake Charles, which would put Houston getting closer and closer to the middle of that option over there, the Houston-Galveston area.
And turning overseas to Israel now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz have till midnight Monday night to agree on a compromise on the 2020 budget. The plan is to delay the vote for 120 days. If they fail to reach an agreement, Israel will automatically go to elections for the 4th time within 2 years. Political infighting puts the coalition government at risk, while Israel is fighting COVID-19 and trying to finalize a peace agreement with the United Arab Emirates. Earlier today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrived in Israel for talks with Netanyahu. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the meeting is one stop on a regional trip to encourage more nations to follow the lead of the peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. It is the first agreement that's normalizing relations between Israel and an Arab country since 1994.
Both Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo praised the new peace agreement.
And it has been a boon to peace and to regional stability. I think it heralds a new era where we could have other nations join. We discussed this, and I hope we'll have good news in the future, maybe in the near future.
What's taking place here is deeply consistent with what President Trump set out to do, create a more stable, more prosperous Middle East. This is a really good step in that direction. Economic relationships between the Emirates, opportunities for innovation and science, travel between these two places will now be open.
After his Israel trip, Secretary of State Pompeo plans to travel on to Sudan, Bahrain, and the UAE. Presidential advisor Jared Kushner is also traveling the region. Both trips are designed to encourage other nations in the region to join the UAE in normalizing relations with Israel. Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. Michael Oren called the deal a stunning diplomatic breakthrough.
The agreement overturned, upended 30 years, 50 years, in some cases 70 years of general consensus about the peace process, how to make peace between Israel and the Arab world.
But some in Israel are disappointed that Israel's declaration of sovereignty over parts of its biblical heartland never materialized. That means no annexation of parts of the areas of biblical Judea and Samaria in the area now known as the West Bank. Kushner said that plan was off the table for the foreseeable future. And a key factor in the region, the opposition of Iran and Turkey to the peace deal, as they both condemn the agreement. Some are concerned it might set the stage for a military confrontation in the region.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
More than 8 in 10 Christian schools plan to offer in-person education this fall, physically reopening their campuses to students in the midst of the pandemic. That's according to a new survey from the Association of Christian Schools International. One of those schools, Colorado Springs Christian Schools, has already reopened. Our George Thomas spoke with Dr. Roland D. Renzo, the superintendent of the school, for more.
You went online with classes last spring after COVID hit. What made you guys decide to take the leap and return to in-person classes this fall?
That's a great question, George. I guess the best way to answer that is because our philosophy is to teach, model, mentor, and then evaluate. And the modeling piece was missing. The modeling piece online, you can only do so much. And so after 2 months of online exclusively, we took the steps to try to reopen here in August, and we were successful in doing so.
Just a small number of students, my understanding, opted out of your in-person classes this fall in favor of your online program. Were you guys surprised that so many families have wanted their children to physically return to school?
You know, yes, we were a little surprised. I think having those 2 months, it really showed parents what teachers do every single day. And we heard comments like, hey, I think every teacher should get a Mercedes if we can go back to school. But we were pleasantly surprised at how many came back and are thriving in the environment this week.
You have an early education center at the school that has actually stayed open throughout the pandemic, and you've had 0 cases of COVID. What did you think has kept your kids safe all this time?
Well, obviously, I think our local and state health departments have really done a great job of giving us guidelines and things that we could follow, and we followed them. But I think our handprints, our early education center, is a great example of being able to follow the guidelines and still have in-person education. So they became kind of our beta test site from March until the end of June, really.
What kind of steps have you guys taken in order to protect the kids as they come back to school this month?
Well, we've done a number of things. We started with putting in new air filtration systems on both campuses, so we clean the air when it comes in, and the circulated air is constantly being cleaned. We have cleaning protocols that happen hourly and daily and weekly. We have temperature checks that we do of all of our employees. We have, done just a number of things that would keep the environment as risk-free as possible. You can't eliminate all of it, but you certainly can mitigate that, and I think we've been successful in doing so.
And as the classrooms, as the kids come back, are they maintaining social distancing, the 6 feet or more apart from each other?
Well, that's the toughest part, to be totally honest with you, because kids want to be in community, and they're social beings, and so that is what we have to work on every single day, and really every minute of every day. But so far this week, we're getting that habit built in, and that culture is beginning to kind of permeate our complete campus. So we'll keep working at that, but that has to happen. We also have a mask mandate for 11 years and older, so we do follow that here as well.
Sure. Last question. The pandemic, as you know, has brought suffering and has been challenging at some levels for really every family across the United States. But I'm wondering where you've seen the Lord at work in your schools, and what are some blessings that you've seen as that has come out from this, from your standpoint?
Well, I think the first thing is that we're built to be in community, and I think having that taken away to the degree that it has been has really caused us to appreciate it more. And then I think the second thing is to just see how the Lord has guided by bringing the right people at the right time in order to fulfill all the mandates as well as the protocols. And then I think the third thing is just the way that the Holy Spirit has created such a cooperative attitude. It takes everyone, and I mean everyone, in order to do this. And so we've been really, really pleased with the way that the Lord has just really shown up in something that nobody ever predicted.
Sounds like you got a little emotional there, talking about just the fact how many people it takes to make this all happen. Elaborate real quickly.
Well, it takes a team. It takes everybody doing what they've been called to do. And I will tell you, they do it with passion. If you don't have the passion to do it, then it's a job. And for us, we've seen that it has become really solid about the calling that our teachers and our administrators and our school leaders have on their lives. And they are really living that out to the fullest now. And we're really, really pleased about that.
All right, terrific. We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Rowland, thank you so much for all you guys are doing. And good luck as the semester gets underway there in Colorado.
Thanks, George. We appreciate it. God bless.
You're welcome. God bless you, too.
Up next, how one Christian family-owned business is taking a stand for justice and for Christ.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A popular deli in downtown Chicago is no longer in business after a campaign to destroy their business was launched when they didn't fully support the Black Lives Matter movement. FaithWire spoke with the owners of Nini's Deli, and Dan Andros joins us now with more on the story. Dan, this is really interesting. Nini's Deli, it sounds like it was very popular, and you spoke with the family that went out of business. What do they think caused the protesters to target them?
Yeah, well, they were very popular, and they were run by Juan Riesco and his brother Jose, and so they were kind of like a Chicago fixture. They were socially media savvy, and so they were able to gain some notoriety that way, had struck some high-profile business relationships with places like Nike and elsewhere in the Chicago area. But when the George Floyd murder happened and the protests started to go, there was, you might remember, a media blackout on social media where everybody was turning their screens black. And what happened was people started looking at Nini's and saying, hey, what's going on? They're awfully quiet over there. So they started to ask them, hey, what's your take on this? And so they started poking around, and finally they ended up giving a response.
Yeah, and explain a little bit, because it sounds like Nini's kind of had a nuanced response, if you will. They were supporting Black Lives Matter, but not completely. So explain that.
Yeah, they took a stance that a lot of Christians have taken, which is, of course, they're against injustice. Of course, they're against the horrible, act that happened to George Floyd. But they didn't want to, throw their full support behind the political organization Black Lives Matter. They said, actually, in their statement, they said Nini's Deli believes that all people were created equal in the image of God. We don't promote or agree with racism or hatred of any kind. They said they believe that all Black lives matter, and we know that only God can bring about justice that is deserved. But what happened was people sort of took that online on social media as an all lives matter response, which, as you may know, a lot of Black Lives Matter protesters view that as sort of a dismissive response. And so it just created a firestorm on social media.
All right. And it sounds like their business has suffered to the point where they're no longer in business. What happens? How did their business fall apart?
Yeah, so Juan told us that basically all, quote, hell broke loose is how he described it. And the firestorm online just kept building and building. And they were saying, so wait, you don't support Black Lives Matter. What's going on? And so they started going after them and saying, why won't you say it? And then that turned into protests in the streets. And people were out there day after day and protesting, calling, and then going after, their Christian views, calling them bigoted, calling them homophobic, et cetera, et cetera. And so eventually that led to all the business partnerships going away. So one business after another, Nike, et cetera, even Chance the Rapper went out there and denounced them. So they just lost all their business partnerships for having this stance. And they ended up just deciding to board up shop and close up shop.
All right. We are out of time, but really fascinating story. Appreciate you covering it. Thank you, Dan Andros.
Thank you.
And you can catch Faithwire right here on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern. After the break, what rare discovery Israeli teenagers uncovered while helping at an archaeological site.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Israeli teenagers helping at an archaeological site discovered a hoard of gold coins that are more than 1,000 years old. From the initial examination, experts say most of the coins date to the end of the 9th century BC. The 24-karat coins date back to the Abbasid Islamic Caliphate that stretched from Persia all the way to North Africa, and the stash contained over 400 gold coins and weighed nearly 2 pounds. Pretty amazing. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.